Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and last year there was this crazy controversy about this card that was issued by Mahogany, which is part of Hallmark, and the card was a Father's Day card that was clearly marketed to black women. Mahogany is a line that markets to people of color, and effectively the card was sort of targeting those who are influenced and impacted by the single parent. I would say single parent crisis in the black community, or single parent trend, whatever you want to call it. And one lady that really, really took issue with this, that really went hard at this company, and dealt with them in an amazing way, is Miss Ermina Hill. And Miss Hill is out of Atlanta, and she's actually given us the honor of gracing us with her presence and telling us how this all went down. And so I want to ask Miss Hill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, thank you.
Good. Well, I'm doing wonderful by having a chance to talk to you because when I was told about what you did, where you dealt with Mahogany straight up and really went after them, I like that a lot because I think that that's the kind of energy and vigor that we're going to need in our community to make things happen and move things forward. Now, first, let's start from the beginning. Tell me what was the process? What did you see with this card that was problematic? I mean, just describe sort of how this was introduced to you, what the original imagery looked like for you, and what your thought process was. But even before you took any action.
Okay, first of all, I didn't even know these cards existed. And I am an actual mahogany consumer. I will go to the store and go straight to the mahogany section at Hallmark to purchase a card because I like the brand. So I saw the card on Facebook a few days before Father's Day. And then I observed, quite a few posts over the course of Father's Day. I was glad to see more posts for fathers because typically, fathers don't get the same attention as mothers. So I was very glad to see more posts just about Father's Day. What bothered me a little bit first thing Monday morning, well, by Sunday night, was how we have a tendency to qualify the greeting to our fathers, our black fathers. Mother's Day, everybody says, Happy Mother's Day to all the great mothers out there. Okay? Father's Day, I was seeing things like, Happy Father's Day to all the deserving dads. Happy Father's Day, not the deadbeat dads. And these are coming from black people. Happy Father's Day to all the great dads out there, if you haven't gotten it together, it's not too late, call your child, blah, 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 And I'm like, why do we do this to the fathers? And why are we doing this to black fathers? Okay? So between that and the fact that I'd seen that card, by Monday, I actually made a comment about that. It's like, I'm glad to see more activity, more recognition for our fathers, but can we dispense with the qualifying adjectives for our fathers? Okay, because we don't do that to mothers. Just say Happy Father's Day. Father is a father, no matter what. We don't get to qualify who's a good one or not. And I think that comes from the fact that we allow certain things that have been put out there now. We seem to have allowed the media and other people who have access to the public to give us a lock on the market for single parenting, period, as if nobody else has single parent families in their cultures besides black people. So I saw the card and I saw some conversations about it on Friday, and then I had a conversation with a good friend of mine. His name is Hank Stewart. He's a poet here in the Atlanta area on Monday. And Hank and I have a tendency to have conversations all the time about issues as it relates to black people in our community here in Atlanta and Georgia. And we got on the subject of the Father's Day, the comments, and I told him about the card and how incensed I was. I said, it's reached a point, I know what the main issue was, the mothers wanting recognition, because it was like, okay, now that we know who's supposed to get recognition, because there was a lot of conversation around and debate around wishing mothers a happy Father's Day because they are raising their children alone. Okay. I am a mother. I'm a parent who happens to raise her child as a single person. I don't like that moniker, single parent. And I remember my child was very young. I tried not to even use that phrase because it gets abused and manipulated. So that was a huge debate I saw on social media about people wanting women, protect women, wanting recognition on Father's Day. Then I saw, the card says, okay, this is not acceptable. They're profiting on dysfunction. It does not make sense. These people, quite frankly, just simply have some unresolved issues that they need to address. And by expecting recognition on that day for something that, quite frankly, is not for you, it speaks volumes. One, you are continuing this perpetuation generational. I actually saw a comment from a black female on Facebook around this card conversation, and it said something to the effect of, that's the good single mothers, not the ones who are just co-parenting. I can tell you from personal experience the fight I had trying to get my son's father to co-parent with me. That's the goal if you're not together, to co-parent your children. What does it say when somebody has a mentality that they don't even understand that that's what they're supposed to be doing? And they're embracing the fight. They're embracing doing it alone. And look at the example they're setting for our children. So that bothered me that Hallmark was profiting off of this dysfunction and profiting, quite frankly, off of people fighting with each other. And I said, you know what? I want to let them know about that. And Hank said, let's call them now. So we made a phone call to Hallmark. We looked up the number. We called. They put us in a voicemail. We called back, said we want a person. We got voicemail for someone who said she was in public relations. We left her a message. And the next day, this was the day after Father's Day. We called on Monday. She called us on Tuesday. And we had a conversation with her. And that conversation didn't go very well, quite frankly.
Really?
No, I found it as an attempt to insult our intelligence and, quite frankly, blow us off, because she started the conversation with, if you're on your computer, just go to our website, go to the newsroom, and there you'll find an announcement that we put out letting people know that we created these cards because people asked for them. Yes, because they asked for them, which to me was not acceptable. Ultimately, I got around to saying to her and another executive, just because people ask for things, that doesn't mean it's okay, and it doesn't mean you say yes. It's like someone who's on a bridge wanting to jump off. Do you come up behind them and give them a push? Okay? The other justification was, because we were saying, why would you target black people? Black men have a hard enough time being stereotyped, black fathers. Why would you target a specific ethnic group? And she actually got defensive and said, we're not. And I said, I'm sorry. What is mahogany? Who does it target? Black people are not an ethnic group. I don't know what is. So that conversation didn't go too well, in that she was, saying things to us like, well, what about their opinions? And we were on the phone like, well, does not our opinion value? We even said to her, we don't like the card at all. If you must keep it in your general collection, fine. Because that was her other justification. We created one for the general population too. Okay? I had a friend say to me, they could have just gone to the store and bought the cards that already existed. So it speaks volumes to me that Hallmark went through the trouble. No savvy business person or company creates a product line without the intention of profiting from it. Otherwise, why would you do it? So to say they asked for it was no justification at all. So we said to them, okay, here's the deal. And I buy Hallmark cards every month for my customers. And I tell them, from this point on, that stops. You're officially boycotted as far as I'm concerned. We will be asking people to boycott you, because the other thing she tried to blow us off with was, well, Father's Day was yesterday and the cards have been pulled from the shelf. And I said, please don't try to insult us thinking that we're going to wait till next Father's Day for you to give us an answer or a response for this. You sell cards year round. So we will ask people to boycott your entire line. We will ask African Americans to boycott mahogany. And then we're going to ask people to give you a call and pull it. And that night I went on my Facebook page. I posted the picture of the card and said, if this card bothers you, you need to call Hallmark and let them know. It is not acceptable that they're profiting from dysfunction and, quite frankly, not being supportive of family, much less the black family. Okay. So this call started. The next day we got a call from another executive. It was an African American executive within the company. That conversation went a lot better. Admittedly, and we had some similar connections in our background, okay, in terms of where we went to school and things like that. But that conversation went a little bit better. But of course, she was asked to call us, and I know what that was. That's corporate America sending the African American executive to kind of cool us out a little bit.
Right.
So she listened.
Calm down the natives, right?
Yes, I just said it. I wasn't sure if I could or not.
Or somebody even trying to say the savages. Right?
And by the middle of the week, they were treating us like savages on those phone calls. I'll tell you about that too. So the conversation with her went much better. She listened to us. We listened to her. She has an extensive career with them, a great career. But she had gotten an earful, which she admitted, from people who knew that she worked at Hallmark about this card. She saw the conversations going on social media about the cards. And by the time we finished talking to her, she said, I'm a little bit more inspired to do something about this. Now, she wasn't saying we're going to get rid of it. She never said that in her conversation with us. But I told her, I said, this is so much deeper than the cards. This goes to, again, as I said, unresolved issues for the people that are asking for it. I said, I can promise you no one who had a father transition out of the family naturally through death or something like that is not asking for these cards. And I can tell you from the comments that I saw, because I saw people say things like, I watched my mother struggle and do this and do that. Okay, fine. My son watched me. But I told my son, I stressed to him because I could see his pain around the fact that his father wasn't in the house and maybe comparing himself as less than compared to some of his friends who had two parents in the house. I said, we are a family. No matter what. We are a family. We may not be like everybody else, but you and I are a family. And quite frankly, you are more than some of those other children. I said, well, you don't know what goes on in their homes. I said, I can promise you a lot of your friends are not getting a hot breakfast, and your mom is willing to make you late for school to give you that hot breakfast instead of letting you eat that stuff at school. And I said, you have been blessed with villages, mentors, because mommy has made sure that you have been reinforced with the positive male images. Nobody will ever try to replace your father. And another thing I told my son and his father around this conversation of wanting to be recognized for Father's Day is I can be all things to him except a man, and I was never going to try. Okay? That wasn't for me to do. So we started making our phone calls. I started getting feedback on Facebook feeds that people were getting hung up on her. So I called to see what was, if I got the same experience. Because when Hank and I called the first time, we'd like to speak to somebody in public relations. We told them what our concern was, and she put us somewhere. We were like, no, she put us in public relations. No problem. I got someone on the switchboard who was asking me questions like, what is this about? We have an 800 number because that was some of the feedback we were getting. Apparently the volume was getting to them. So it was night and day, the experience of calling the switchboard. And ultimately, I was put in the customer. She would never transfer me to public relations. She put me in customer service. As soon as I said, I want public relations, the woman hung up on me. Now, in defense of the public relations lady that we initially talked to, I got feedback from several people who said that she was returning phone calls. Her tone was very different than the conversation we had the first time. She probably got a little coaching after we talked to the executive because we let her know how that went. And she actually admittedly said, we realized we've made a mistake. But the rudeness on the phone kept happening. People were actually saying if they saw apparently if they saw 404, 678, or 770 area codes, they were automatically hanging up. They wasn't even letting people ask for what they wanted. That's how bad it was. And when I was giving putting that feedback on their Facebook page, they would remove, when I initially put my concern out there, they would move. I noticed they moved my post to where people couldn't really see them like other posts. And I expressed my concern about that. They claimed that we put people's names out there, and to which I said, we found these names on your website. Okay. So that went on Wednesday and Thursday. Long story short, by Friday evening, we received a phone call from the executive that we had talked to, who told us that they were pulling those cards from the mahogany line. They were going to keep them in the general collection, but they were pulling them from the mahogany line. So we won. Our efforts worked. And that was in 4 days.
Wow.
And one of the things I want people to realize is I have a huge frustration with us as a people, and that we don't use the tools and technology that we have today to affect change the way we can, and to do it in short order. People have died for us to have the right to do a lot of things today. If you look at the civil rights movement, they had nothing. Look at what those people did with nothing. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have pagers. They didn't have computers. They had each other, and they had the church. Okay? And they came from across the country to help each other. We gave our own money. We didn't beg corporations for anything. And we got it done. And today what we did proves that if we just put our mind and our fingertips, literally just your fingertips. I sat right here and did what I did. I didn't have to leave here to do what I did. I picked up the phone, I get on my computer. That's all I did. And I asked other people to do the same thing.
Well, I love it. I love it. Now, let me ask you this: what would you say to those who would say, "Look, this wasn't a card that they were just creating for Black people. Mm-hmm. This is a card they created for anybody who wanted a Father's Day card for a single mom." Mm-hmm. How do you respond to that sort of critique? To just say, "Look, they weren't targeting Black people specifically; they were sending it to everybody." Because didn't you say they had one for the
they had too? One thing they had a card for fathers on Mother's Day as well. Okay. But Hallmark has been selling Mother's Day and Father's Day cards for years. Those people could have very easily said to those people, we have cards in our collection. Because you could have walked in the store and bought one of those cards and wrote a note that said, "Mom, I just wanted to say to you, thanks. If you just insist on doing that on Father's Day." But depending, I would probably, if I had a one-on-one conversation with the person, and particularly because of my experience, ask them, for a little bit about the background of that. Why is it that you feel that you should be recognized for something that, quite frankly, was not intended for you? And like we said to them, it's not even physically possible for me to be a father. I am not a man. A man is not a woman. So why are we going to even go there? Okay, let's look at the root. Let's look at where this is really coming from and address the issue. Okay, and that's the only way we can grow. That's the only way our families can thrive. Okay, and that's the way our children will grow up and do the same thing, because it's definitely affecting us generationally. When I see women say, "I watched my mama work hard," blah 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 blah, things are going to happen to all of us. The first thing you got to do is set responsibility for your situation, set responsibility for your actions, and resolve to figure out what you're going to do to make it better. And if you have children, I don't see how you don't look at them and say, "I got to stop this with this. I got to stop this with them. I got to do what I can to make sure it doesn't, they at least think about it not happening for them."
Well, okay. It's interesting. my argument, Arena, would be that it seems that because you've had this whole thing with the prisons, the growth in prison populations, that when you've incarcerated so many of the men, and then you've marginalized so many more through
Mm-hmm.
joblessness, the homicide rate. Then you throw in drug addictions that occurred in the 80s and 90s. It almost seems that we're in the second generation of this dysfunction, this wave
Mm-hmm.
of seeing the father as an optional accessory to a household, not a necessary accessory, not something that needs to be there, but something that that is nice to have if you can have one, but really you don't need it, right? And it's interesting because you see that young girl grow up and say, as you mentioned, I saw my mother really struggle to raise all of us. It was hell for her. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like interesting. It's like, wow. So you're signing up for the same hell that your mother went through? Is that
Mm-hmm.
But then it seems that the response, the instant counter argument, which is not invalid, is, well, I didn't want to be a single mom. I got pregnant by this Negro, and he's choosing not to be here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a valid argument too, because the sons are growing up in these households without
Mm-hmm.
the father. So in their mind, they're like, maybe, I saw Mama do everything. She's holding it down. So so the woman who is parenting my child, she can hold it down too, just like my mama did, and that lets me go and do whatever I want to do. But then at the same time, you have to also acknowledge the fact that there are lots and lots of men who have volunteered themselves for co-parenting, who want to be actively involved, who have been sort of pushed to the side to say, "No, Mama got this." Right?
Mm-hmm.
My mama handled it. My mama held it down. I'm holding it down too. Or if you are going to be involved, it has to be according to my rules. I am the dictator of this ship.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like it's my baby, my baby, my baby. Like it's funny if you listen to people talk about, or the way and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but the amount
You're
of
not.
energy and emphasis people put on the words "my child."
Huh?
You're not going to tell my child what to do. That's my child, my child, my child. This sort of possessiveness, and you almost never hear our child, right?
You have to consciously do it, and I can personally attest that I had to work on it myself
Mm,
because, particularly when you are not happy with that other person, okay, at the end of the day, I made the choice to have this child with him, okay? Whether it worked out or not, that child did not ask to come here. We don't pick our parents, okay? So don't make them suffer for our actions after they get here. Hank, the person that did this with me, he articulated the way I feel about things perfectly. He says, I love my child more than I disagree, more than I dislike his mother.
mm,
In other words, you don't have to get along with each other. You don't have to like each other, but you need to love that child enough and more than any of that other foolishness you got going on with the other parent. Because if she makes a suggestion or he makes a suggestion that's best for the child, why not? Why wouldn't you go along with it? I can tell you from personal experience. I watched everything I fought to associate my child with that was positive. Had nothing to do with replacing his father, but I watched him systematically and intentionally undo all of it.
mm,
Okay? So, people, it does happen. And it's a shame. And we're talking, and it doesn't matter what your economic situation is, too. And I want to say something else about us in this parenting thing. Stay out of court. Stay out of court. I never filed one piece of paper against my son's father for anything, but I was in court a lot because it was used as punishment. For whatever reason, people seem to think we need to stop running to court asking other people who don't look like us, quite frankly, to make decisions about our children. I've yet to see a situation where people were in court and fighting about visitation, about child support, where it ever turned out okay for the children. At the end of the day, it's all about he who has the best lawyer and can pay for one wins, whether it's the right thing for that child or not. And these are the people who are asking for these cards, okay? Men need to stop saying things like, I'm not going to pay child support for her to go get her hair done or for her to look good for another man. See, this is dysfunction. This is mental. These people, we need to go see counselors. You know, as a people, we don't take it, we don't go to counseling like we should. There is no shame in going to counseling. Okay? Women need to stop taking men to court to get back at them to make them pay. They're not supposed to be supporting you. They're supposed to help you take care of your child. Okay? And though this is quite frankly what goes on in our community. And this is why you have people asking for this card, you know, for some type of acknowledgement for something that quite frankly they're not addressing. That card is not going to fix at the end of the day. After you get that card, guess what? That dysfunction is still there Monday morning. At 11:59 on the third Sunday in June, when Father Day is about to be over, you're still participating in a dysfunction of breaking out our parents, men and women, in our black family. You know,
Absolutely.
so
Well, I think the way to sum it up is that if you use a person, a human being, as a weapon, meaning your child, when you use a human being as a weapon, you might damage the target, but you also damage the weapon.
mm-hmm,
And parents have to think about that when they are using the child as a way to get back at somebody else. Don't get mad because the child loves the other parent, even when you
mm-hmm,
don't, even if you don't think the other parent's worthy.
mm-hmm,
Every parent is worthy of being loved by their child.
exactly.
From the mother and the father, right?
Mm-hmm,
So, and I think that that's, and what's ironic and sad is that we understand that entirely when it comes to the mother. I think that we know every mother deserves love from her child, and many mothers, so unfortunately, if they don't feel love in their life, they see that child as their way to get the love that they would like to have, right?
ooh,
And if you see that, if you think that's okay for the mother, then it should also be okay for the father, even if he's an idiot or a person that makes bad choices or whatever. First of all, A, you did choose to sleep with him and you chose to
mm-hmm,
make this investment with him, and then B,
mm-hmm,
he deserves to be loved by his child too. So this
mm-hmm,
idea of saying negative things about the father when he's not around, that's destructive. Keeping the child away because you think that you're protecting him or her from this horrible person, well, that's something that has to be done very carefully
right,
because you're not the dictator. You are the partner in the entity,
mm-hmm,
not the controlling interest. So anyway, we have got to shut down, but I have so enjoyed listening to you tell the story, and I so commend you for everything that you're doing. And I know that you are a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and the women in my family would be so happy to hear that because we got
thank
AKs,
you.
AKs everywhere in our family. So,
Thank you. I
right?
give a shout out to Alpha Pi chapter at Clark College, which is where I was made, which is now
Ah,
Clark Atlanta University. But I'd
yes.
also like to thank the people I know and the people I don't know who took the time to make these phone calls to Hallmark and cared enough to help make a difference. And hopefully it inspires them as well as others who now will know about it. Because a lot of people don't even know that this happened. They don't. So this will give the story some exposure, and we're going to keep working to give this story some exposure because people need to know. Um,
That's right.
People need to
Absolutely.
know.
And thanks to you, they do know now. And by the way, just as a side note, I love Clark Atlanta University too. I gave money to the school, so I'm officially an honorary alumni. So
Definitely an honorary alumni. We have to get
yes,
you a shirt.
yes. All right. I'm gonna get me. I might already have one. I gotta go look in my closet. Well, thank you so much, Ermina. Everybody, this is Ermina Hill. She's also, just as a side, I hope you will support her business. Her website is thebenefitslady.net.
Not yet.
Thebenefitslady.net, and she does corporate consulting and all kinds of other great work. And I really think we should support each other. I believe strongly in supporting black business. So let's do this. Whatever way you can help her, please do this because she's helping us. So we got to help each other, and that's all. As Forrest Gump would say, that's all I have to say about that. Well, thank you so much, Miss Hill. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins. It was humbling as well as a pleasure.
Oh well, the humility and the pleasure are equally mine, even more so. And I'm also humbled by the fact that there are so many of you who have joined us today and are listening and watching this. Thank you so much for your support. Without you, we would be nothing. So until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.